A lot of patients that come from these villages have been ostracized because of their tumor, their deformity. And so a lot of them have lacked even just being treated with human decency. And so when she first came to us, she never smiled. She didn't make eye contact. She wouldn't talk to us. She just was so used to being ostracized and shunned by her community that she just almost didn't know how to accept us showing her love and attention and care. And so it was amazing to see on one of her last days right before she left us, she was smiling, she was interacting, you could just tell she was so joyful. And it was amazing to see that, yes, she'd been impacted by, the physical surgery that had been provided for her. But more importantly, she had felt what it was like to be loved, to be cared for, to be served by people. And it was just such an amazing thing to be a part of as a nurse, to say, like, this is why I became a nurse.
Hey there, I'm your host, Sarah Lorenzini, a rapid response nurse and educator who loves telling stories to teach critical thinking. This podcast is for nurses who want the knowledge, skills, and confidence to respond to any emergency. With almost 20 years of experience in the ER and critical care nursing and a master's degree in nursing education, I have a lot of stories to share, and I love to nerd out and break down the pathophysiology, pharmacology, and nurses' role in emergencies. Stories bring learning to life. It is way easier to learn from and remember the stories that my colleagues and mentors have told me than anything I've read in a textbook. And that is why I made this podcast. Every episode is packed full of exactly what you need to know to handle whatever crisis that could arise on your shift. It's one thing to get the right answer on the test, but knowing how to detect when your patient is declining and what to do when your patient is crashing is what will make or break your day and might just save your patient's life. Welcome back to the Rapid Response Run podcast. Today, I am super excited. We have a very special episode. Joining me today is Becca, who is a nurse who did medical missions for years, and she's going to share with us her experience being on the mission field, doing nursing outside of your stereotypical hospital bedside environment. So Becca, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here with you.
Yeah, so glad to have you. So can we just back up a little bit? Just tell us how long you've been a nurse and what made you want to go work with Mercy Ships?
So I've been a nurse for about 7.5 years, and I do have a bit of a variety of experience, but even going back to when I was a child, I'd say even like 11 and 12, I had already known at that point that I wanted to be a nurse. And I honestly don't remember where I first heard about Mercy Ships. I'd say, maybe I was 14, 15, maybe a little bit older. And as I got older and I knew about their vision and what they did, how they served people, that was just what I wanted to do and what I felt called to do. And so I would tell people that, I'm going to be a nurse and then I'm going to go serve with Mercy Ships. And that was just my plan from even kind of part of the process of becoming a nurse, is I knew that that was an end goal of being able to serve with them.
I love it. So you got your nursing degree as planned, and then what?
I started out in peds cardiac ICU, which I'm not sure if that was the smartest decision as a new grad. For anyone that has worked peds cardiac ICU or even ICU fresh out of school, I'm sure would tell you that it's quite the challenge. And then there was just a lot of challenges as far as ethical dilemmas, moral dilemmas, and then just a lot of death and dying. And I think in my first year and a half of nursing, I quickly realized, this is just a little bit too much of what I can handle. I love kids and I want to be able to see them do well and get better and go home. And it was great for a lot of those patients that were able to graduate, from the PCICU. But for those that didn't, it was really challenging. And so after that, I was there about a year and a half, and then I had lived at home. I went to a community college, and so I really felt like I needed a little bit more variety of experience and life experience. And so, Mercy Ships was still on my mind, but you had to have that 2-year experience before you could go and serve with them. And so I wasn't quite there yet. So if I was there, I probably would have just gone to Mercy Ships then. But I needed about another 9 months. And so my sister had lived in New York City. And so I thought about it and kind of randomly applied to a job and got a job in a progressive care unit for pediatrics in New York City. And so moved up there for about a year and a half and realized that I still did love pediatric nursing. Just, more my patients, seeing them go to the floor and then go home instead of, being with us for a while in the ICU. And so, yeah, I was up there for about a year and a half. And then I had kind of been thinking still in the back of my mind, okay, I want to go to Mercy Ships. I don't know when the right time is. Long story short, at first, said, oh, we can't take you for a year and a half later with your experience. We're kind of booked out till then. And so I was like, okay, it's probably a good thing I applied now. And then, they called me back maybe about 4 weeks later and they're like, oh, we see you have ICU experience and we really need pediatric ICU nurses. Would you consider coming? I think they said in 6 weeks. And at that point, I was like, oh, I'm a little busy. I can't come in 6 weeks because I'd been planning to go for a long time. So I would wanted to go for 2 years. And so I said, I can't come in 6 weeks, but I can come in 3 months. And so then I kind of packed up my life, quit my job, and prepared to go live on the ship.
Wow. Okay. So I just realized not everyone knows what Mercy Ships is. We should probably back up and talk about like what is Mercy Ships. Can you just give a quick overview? Like, what do they do? What's the ship part? Just explain that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. So, Mercy Ship's mission and vision is to bring hope and healing to patients in predominantly West Africa. And so, a lot of what they do is providing surgeries for patients that don't have the ability to get the care that they need in their country. And that's really due to lack of access to safe surgery and even experienced surgeons with just some procedures that are a little bit more extensive that surgeons just haven't had the opportunity for that kind of training in some of those countries. And so they take a literal ship, a floating ship, and they go to a country. So where I was at was in Senegal, and so they docked in the port area of the country, and then they're there usually for about 10 months. And so they send a whole team out ahead of time. They have had different names for it. I think it might be the advanced team. And they actually go and they screen patients and they, put posters kind of everywhere in churches and villages, just everywhere to spread the word about, hey, we're coming, we're bringing free surgery. And here's some things that we will operate on. And so they post like some pictures so that, people that maybe wouldn't even know necessarily a technical name for a tumor or a contracture can, look at the picture and say, oh, that's me. Maybe, they could do free surgery for me. So it really is amazing because everyone on the ship is a volunteer. And so you have surgeons, you have nurses, you have physical therapists on the medical side of things, amongst many others. You have your pharmacists, your lab techs, and then you also have a wide variety of other volunteers that are needed to, have the ship run and for the mission to continue. So you have people helping cook food and people cleaning the ship. And then you have your technical crew. So you have your maritime officers that are ensuring the ship runs safe and sound as it's supposed to. And they also do dental and eye work as well. And so, just a really incredible ministry that has so many opportunities, regardless of whether or not you're a nurse, to serve in the medical and non-medical field.
Wow. So it's basically like a floating hospital / clinic that just docks in a third world country and opens the doors and says, like, come on, if you need free surgery or support, we are here as volunteer doctors, nurses, physical therapists, pharmacists, etc.
Yes, essentially.
That is so cool. That is so cool.
Yes, it's super cool. And a little bit more controlled version of, not a free for all, but they will screen anybody and everybody. But yes, it's amazing that there's no, you don't have to do anything to be considered for free surgery, which is amazing.
Wow, that's awesome. Can you kind of back us up and tell us, like, so once you made the decision, I'm going, what kind of preparation did they give you to be on this ship doing this nursing work that's very outside of what you were I mean, I know you're trying to be a nurse, and that's pretty applicable anywhere, but like specifically with the language barrier and then just the cultural differences, like what kind of prep did they give you?
So I was not your typical nurse in that most nurses in the beginning go for anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months. So they take your OR specialty for 2 weeks. And then if you have more, say, med surge background or ICU or ER, typically the minimum commitment is 2 months. But when I went, I just really felt like I was supposed to go for a while. And so I had signed on for 2 years. And so if you go for a year or longer, they do have you go to, they call it onboarding, which, is appropriate for a ship, but they have you go to Texas, or I believe they may have some options virtually as well, but there was a whole group of us that went to Texas that were joining the ship together. And it was great because it was a couple weeks of how do you live on a ship? How do you live amongst different cultures? Because, at any given time, there can be people from over 60 different nations, which is incredible. But, everybody comes from a different background. And so, they have different ways of handling conflict and how do they live their day to day. And so there was a lot of preparation from that aspect. And then as a nurse, when you get to the ship, so regardless of how long you're going to be there, everybody gets, a couple of hours with the nurse educators. They do actually have a couple nurse educators on board, which is incredible, especially considering, it's a quick or, a missions opportunity, but they have nurses that have been with Mercy Ships for a long time that provide some education, not just in the beginning, but along the way. Because for a lot of nurses, especially in the West, it's a lot of procedures that we're not familiar with and we haven't seen before. Because, say a goiter in the US would get taken care of when it's quite small. Whereas, for patients in West Africa, if they've not had access to safe surgery, it can be quite a large goiter that the procedure is the same, but the recovery process is still a little bit different. You do get 5 days of orientation with another nurse. So they have you paired with another nurse for your first week, and you do a variety of shifts like day and evening. And then after that, honestly, there's definitely some things that can put you out of your comfort zone as far as, oh, I've never seen this type of surgery before. What's the recovery process like? But the standard for surgery of recovery and healing is the basics are the same. And then honestly, the environment for the patients and nurses is very team nursing. So, you get your individual assignment of say maybe I get four patients for the day, but the wards are open. And so, we might have 4 or 5 nurses working on the same shift and we each have 4 patients, but all the patients are out in the same kind of open area or open ward. And so it's great because if you have a question, you just go ask another nurse. You're like, hey, does this wound look like it's supposed to? I'm not sure what this flap should look like. And so it is helpful there too, in that there's always resources available from other nurses that you're working with to they have a charge nurse on every shift that has a lot of experience that's been with Mercy Ships that are a great resource.
So I'm sure every day is different, but like, what is a day in the life of a Mercy Ships nurse like? Like what, you wake up and then like, what do you eat? What do you hang out when you're off shift? Like, what's it like?
Yeah, honestly, I'd say it's pretty cush missions living. So for anyone that's done, medical missions, you have AC, you have hot water, you have food cooked for you, and it's good food. So that part is nice. So, say a typical day, you get up, there's a shared cafeteria, and so it usually serves breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And so there is I guess technically 3 different shifts that they have. And so you work typically, a 40-hour work week. So it's kind of similar somewhat to, working a job here in the States, but you do 8-hour shifts instead of 12-hour shifts. So yeah, say day in the life, you wake up, you go to the cafeteria, you get coffee, you get breakfast, you go down, say you have the 7 o'clock shift, you go down. And then typically what we would do before and after every shift is we'd have a team huddle. So I loved those team huddles because you would gather with the offgoing and oncoming shifts And then you would talk about, how was the night? How's the day? Kind of what things are we looking forward to today? And then usually there was some little bits and opportunities to share too, like, what was something positive with a patient that happened today. And so those opportunities are amazing because those are some of the things I think we miss out on in the States, and that we get so task oriented, and that we forget to focus on, hey, tell me something good, like what good happened here today. Let's give like a little moment of joy from the day. And so it's a great way to start your shift and end your shift, just to say, yeah, this is a moment of joy for this patient. They got their feeding tube taken out, or whatever it may be. And so those are amazing opportunities that I wish we had here in the States, as far as celebrating patients and what's happening in the day to day.
I love it. Okay, so your shift ends, and then what do you do like in the evenings or like with your time off? You just like go into the city? Do you have a translator? Hey guys, I'll get back to the episode in just a second, but I wanted to pause to let you know that if you love my podcast but wish there were more of these awesome episodes, well, I have great news for you. There is more. My Rapid Response Academy is basically podcast 2.0, plus the huge added bonus of community. I love hosting this podcast, but it's just me, recording into a microphone often by myself. And this extroverted gal who loves to both teach and mentor nurses just wanted more. So in the community I created, I get to teach live every Friday and break down topics that I think every nurse needs to know. From deep dives into the pathophys of every emergency you can think of, to some of the heart of nursing topics as well, like how to advocate with confidence for your patient, how to de-escalate situations, how to deal with bullies on the unit, how to be an amazing preceptor and charge nurse, and some of the mindsets and boundaries that have helped me stay in nursing for the last 20 years, not burn out, and thrive at the bedside. I love the opportunity to answer your questions live, and it's such a joy to see nurses supporting each other in this community. So, if you're an acute care nurse that wants to expedite your growth as a nurse and invest in yourself so that you can provide the best care to your patients, you would love my Rapid Response Academy. So to learn more, I put a link in the show notes for you. Hope to see you there.
So when I was in Senegal, there was a good number of English speakers. And then, since we're on a large multicultural, multinational ship, there's a lot of people that usually speak the local language as well. So, or the official language, I should say, of the country. And so for Senegal, it was French. So there was a lot of French speakers on board that could translate. But at least in Senegal, there was quite a lot of opportunity. And most countries do have opportunity to go out in your off time. So yeah, say you get done at 2:30 or 3 with caring for your patients. And I will say this, there was always, always, always a group of people that were wanting to go out and go do something, go explore, go get ice cream, go taste the local food. And so, yeah, each country is different on opportunities that are available, but a lot of options for exploring, the local culture and what's around. And then a couple other things that people did is a lot of people love to play games. And so there was kind of a midships area. And so that was one of my favorite things. I am a game player at heart. And so, people would gather and play card games or board games or just connect in the evenings. And that was great also because it was a great way to make friends and connect with people and just, have fun in your evenings. So those were a couple of good things. And then another thing that a lot of people did is, so for patients that don't necessarily need, that one-on-one or more supervised nursing care, but are still getting either physical therapy or dressing changes, they still have to be close by because they could live, a 7-hour drive away. And so they can't get maybe the physical therapy that they need. And so they stay at our Hope Center until they're kind of discharged or released. And so, you build connections as a nurse with those patients. And so you have that opportunity in your off time as well to go and see them and be a part of their physical therapy and play games. And it's just amazing. I feel like there's endless opportunity of what to do when you're free.
Wow, Becca, it all sounds so awesome. Like, I've been on multiple missions trips, and yes, usually you're kind of roughing it. Like, you don't have hot water or even like running water, and you're like in the middle of nowhere and it's very hot and there's bugs. Like, this sounds pretty nice. I mean, what were your living quarters like? I'm thinking like a cruise ship. Is it like bunkers or?
Yeah, so yeah, it is pretty nice. I've been on some other mission trips too, where yes, this is definitely like, yes, the most cush experience. So on the Africa Mercy, most births were anywhere between a 4 to a 6. And then there was like 1 10 birth. And so I was in a 6 birth. So I had 5 other roommates. And so there was 3 sets of double bunk beds. And then we had a shared bathroom and like a little hallway. So it honestly, the rooms do feel a little bit small, but you're only in your room to sleep. So you're never there. So yeah, kind of like a dorm, but really small. But from what I've seen and heard, the Global Mercy is 2 to a room, and the rooms are a bit more spacious. So I think that is almost a little bit more cruise ship style. But and I have heard and seen they have a like a basketball court pickleball net that is like netted in, I think. So that's a neat opportunity they have on board too.
That's awesome. So it sounds like you went when you were single. Are there options for couples or families to be on Mercy ships?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was one thing that I loved about Mercy Ships was that it was very much a family feel. And so there are a lot of singles that go, but there are opportunities for couples and families also. And so I would say when we were there, I think there was maybe about 50 50 to 60 like families or family I would family unit total. So maybe like 15 families with anywhere from 3 to 5. And so parents with young kids, they do actually have a school on board, which is amazing. So for parents that want to serve more long term and have their kids in school, that's one of the also the volunteer positions is a teacher. So if you're a teacher, there's that opportunity also, which is amazing. And so yeah, for couples, for families, and then for singles. So most people go, not knowing anybody, but that's really not a problem at all because if you think about the type of person that wants to go and do medical missions and go and serve, they usually have a great spirit or generous heart, and they also are very adventurous and so want to go and do, exciting things. And so honestly, some of my best and closest friends are from Mercy Ships. And when I moved out to Colorado, somebody moved with me and we still see each other once a week. And so it's been super neat, just that connection. And then I did also meet my husband on Mercy Ships.
I love it. So I'm just trying to think, what kinds of like nursing skills were you doing? I mean, are you taking the vital signs, doing the dressing changes, anything that's like different or outside of what you'd be doing in the US?
Yeah, so a lot of things were similar. So yeah, kind of, we did IVs, IV medications, we did dressing changes, we did tube feeds. There was a couple ventilated patients, but that wasn't the norm. They tried to extubate them before coming to the ward. So I would say, one thing that was a little bit different was paper charting, is they do paper charting. So that was a bit of getting used to like the surgeons are great at educating. They do rounds every morning. And so they're awesome and they are very happy to teach and say, hey, like come and look, like this is what a flap should look like. And this is, what these skin grafts should look like at this stage or that kind of thing. And that there's not as much, typically sometimes there's a different perspective, I think, of surgeons sometimes, but, the ones that are serving with Mercy Ships just have an awesome heart to educate and really don't mind being asked questions. And the nice thing is, too, is that your anesthesiologists, your hospitalists, your surgeons, they all carry pagers. And so if there is a urgent question with a patient, too, they're always available to be paged and happy to, they're right there sleeping on the same ship. So they're happy to come down on the wards and see their patients and those kind of things. So I'm trying to think if there was anything, super out of the norm. I will say one thing that was neat was that physical therapy, especially for the orthopedic kids that had the bow legs that got repaired, is physical therapy comes and just works with them on the ward. And so because it's just one big open room, you get to kind of work with them and experience that as well. And so that's such a neat opportunity to get to see some of these kids kind of start to move with their walkers and take their first steps and It just feels like you get to be involved in more of like the whole picture of the patient's care, as opposed to like, oh, great, they're doing a dressing change, wound care is here. I'm going to go see this patient. It's like, no, you're the wound care nurse. Like you're doing some of these things. And so it's neat that you do have that opportunity to kind of care for every aspect of the patient, if that makes sense.
I love it. Do you have any specific stories that exemplify the kind of impact that you get to make as a Mercy Ships nurse?
Thinking back to my experience, there's so many patients' faces and stories that kind of jump out to me. But one in particular, we had a patient who was actually with us for quite some time, I would say several months, and she had some pretty bad maxillofacial tumors that had to be resected. And so she was having a several staging surgery. So they would do a surgery, give her a couple weeks to heal, and then do another surgery and that kind of process. And so it was very interesting because, a lot of patients that come from these villages have been ostracized because of their tumor, their deformity, and so a lot of them have lacked even just being treated with human decency. And so when she first came to us, she never smiled, she didn't make eye contact, she wouldn't talk to us. She just was so used to being ostracized and shunned by her community that she just almost didn't know how to accept us showing her love and attention and care. And so, she was with us for quite some time. And so the one thing that I love about nursing with Mercy Ships too is that you really have time to spend with your patients. And so you get the opportunity to draw pictures with them and play soccer in the hallway and just to like sit and be with them. And, we don't always speak the same language. We do have translators, which is amazing and very necessary. But, sometimes if they're not available and you just have time to just sit with your patients, you can paint their nails and just kind of have that presence of being together. And so it was amazing to see on one of her last days, right before she left us, she was smiling, she was interacting, you could just tell she was so joyful. And it was amazing to see that, yes, she'd been impacted by, the physical surgery that had been provided for her. But more importantly, she had felt what it was like to be loved, to be cared for, to be served by people. And it was just such an amazing thing to be a part of as a nurse, to say, like, this is why I became a nurse. This is why I do this job, is, to make a difference in people's lives, because when they're needing care, when they're needing surgery, it's a very vulnerable place to be in. And to be able to see that shift of her experiencing what it felt like to be loved and to be served and to be cared for was worth it all.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that story. When you think back to your time there, how would you say that your experience as a Mercy Ships nurse has changed you as a person?
I feel like it's changed me in a lot of ways. Serving with Mercy Ships really reminded me of why I became a nurse, because there was an aspect there too where, regardless of what we could give to patients, regardless of what we could do for them, they were just so grateful. Like, thank you for seeing me. Even if it was a no for surgery, sometimes they just said, thank you. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for considering me, and just everything that we did for them. They were so appreciative. Like, I just am so grateful for your care. And that was a great reminder. That's not why we do it. We don't do it for the thanks, but it was a great reminder too of like that is my heart of in nursing, to be able to serve people and people in their vulnerable moments and in their hard times. And so it was just such a great reminder of, it's more than the politics and the charting and, the hospital drama, and that there's more to it. There is a reason why each and every one of us became a nurse. And, a big part of that is to care for people. And so, yeah, it really reminded me of that. And I'm so thankful for that, because even though I'd only been in nursing a couple of years at that point, I think I was already starting to get a little burnt out in saying, is this all there is in nursing? Like, does it get any better than this? And so, yeah, I think that was a really good reminder for me of, there is more. And this is why we do it. We just, we don't do it for the thanks, but we do it because people need it.
Right. Right. I mean, there definitely is high risk of burnout with the hospital machine, like
Mm-hmm.
the money making machine that is the hospital, and the hustle and the grind and the everything's digitized and you got to go, and the throughput and get them in, get them out, and like insurance, like the legal aspect, it can just be such a heavy burden sometimes. And it sounds like
Mm-hmm.
what you're describing to me, it just sounds like getting back to the heart of nursing and
Mm-hmm.
getting to do the things that you envisioned yourself doing when you went to nursing school in the first place. Like no one goes to nursing school thinking, ooh, I get to scan some meds. Like, ooh, I get to
Yeah.
I get to type a note in like the electronic health system. Like we think about holding patients' hands and walking them through difficult times, and that's what you got to do as a Mercy Ships nurse, and that is so beautiful. What a cool experience. Was there anything that surprised you about Mercy Ships, like you were not expecting that until you got there?
Yeah. So, it's funny because I was going for a little bit longer. I tried to do all the research that I could and figure out what to expect, but it was definitely not what I expected, but in a good way. In that, I think one thing that surprised me was how much the ship felt like family. And part of that was I wasn't sure what to expect, and that here we are serving with people from all over the world and all different ages and cultures and backgrounds. But it was amazing to see that, people coming together with the same heart and mind and goal. And I loved that in that, there was babies to people up to age 70. And I worked with nurses from Norway and Australia and the UK. And actually, a neat opportunity too is that I got to work with nurses from Senegal. So they brought on some local nurses from Senegal. And so that was just amazing. The realizing that even though, we may all have different backgrounds and come from different places, just to have that same goal in mind and to be able to serve alongside each other was just such a feeling of family that it feels hard being away from home, if that makes sense, because it was just incredible. I wish there was more words to describe it, but you just have to go to experience it.
I love it. Is there anything that you wish you would have known before you started? Like that you wish someone would have told you?
Yeah. So, yeah, again, I did a lot of research because I'm like, if I'm going to be here a long time, then I need to know what I'm getting myself into, which again, you can't fully know till you're there. I think one thing is, especially for nurses considering it too and thinking is how much you're going to love it. And so, wishing before you started is maybe going in with an open mind. And I think I did somewhat, but I wish I would have had a little bit more of an open mind of like, this is going to be amazing. And I was thinking of some of the hardships of like, oh, leaving home and, giving up my car and giving up just all the things. But yeah, I think having that expectation of this is going to be greater than you can think or dream. And so, yeah, I loved it.
I can totally see going into it thinking, all right, this is going to be a sacrifice. It's going to be rough. I'm living in a third world country on a ship for a couple of years. Like, all right, just going to like grit and bear it. And like, just, this is what I need to do. Instead, you're surprised with, oh, this is great. I have a family. It's such community. My nurse to patient ratio is good. I get to spend time with my patients. I get to know them on the long haul, watch them recover. Like, yeah, that's a great thing to be surprised by. That sounds wonderful. So after hearing all this, I am sure there are nurses that are like, oh my gosh, this is a thing. I totally want to be a part of Mercy Ships. I would love to do that. Is there anything that you would tell a nurse who's now considering taking a trip with Mercy Ships?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, do it. Don't hesitate. Just go. Don't overthink it. You have the opportunity to go. You're not going to regret it. But I would also say this is however long you're thinking of going for, maybe have a thought open of your mind. Maybe I'll stay a little longer. So, one thing that's kind of funny is that the majority, I would say, of nurses, once they get there, say their commitment is 2 months right off the bat, even after week 2 or 3, they're asking, I'd like to extend my commitment. I want to stay longer. And so I think people don't realize how much they're actually going to love it. And so maybe go with an open schedule and an open mind of maybe 2 months, but maybe I'll go for 4 months. And I'll say, too, if you're nervous about making friends, don't be. You're going to make some of the most amazing friends. It's going to remind you about why you became a nurse. And it's just such an incredible opportunity to use your gifts and talents and abilities to serve people. And so I'd say go for it. Don't hesitate. If they give you dates, say, yes, I'm coming. It's worth it.
I love it. Well, Becca, I think you answered all of my questions. Thank you so much for giving your time today to share with us your experience with Mercy Sips. It sounds amazing. It sounds amazing. I got to figure out how I can get my family of 7 there because it sounds like such a good time. All right. Well, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I so appreciate it.
Before you go, I have an exciting announcement. You can now earn CEs for listening to this podcast. That's right. Our Renegade has teamed up with podcast hosts like me who are delivering amazing content that not only educates, but inspires you to be the best for your patients. You get to learn and earn continuing education credits while absorbing knowledge from thought leaders and innovators in the field of health and medicine. You're already listening to podcasts during your commute, at the gym, or while unwinding after a long day. So why not earn your CEs at the same time? And that's where pod classes come in. Yep, it's just what it sounds like. It's CE learning through podcast. To learn more, I put a link in the show notes for you. Well, thanks for listening. I hope you learned something that will save a life. Remember, nursing is a team sport, so trust your intuition and don't give up advocating until you are confident you've done what's right by your patient. The views and opinions expressed on this show are that of Sarah Lorenzini's. That's me and mine alone. They are not intended as medical advice and should not take the place of your institution's policies or procedures. Evidence-based practice is ever-changing, and your patient care should reflect the current best practice. So if you want to get in contact with me, you can shoot me an email at sarah@rapidresponsern.com or on all social media platforms as the Rapid Response RN.